how long have you been sort of in these? When did you first get started? I suppose sort of get involved in politics and so on in any one of these groups.
Well, for the first group that I ever joined was a BNP, and when I was growing up, I didn't see a black person till I was about 12 years old, and then they started to arrive I was from Barry, and they started to arrive there. But I was a football hooligan when I was young. I wasn't interested in politics, and I didn't really have a problem until I went to London to work. I went to work on Canary Wharf when they were building that. And I saw the state of Tower Hamlets and London is horrific. And while I was up there, I saw a sticker for the BNP. And when I came back, I just couldn't stop thinking about how bad it was there, because this was like in the 90s and there was no white people there then, in some of these areas. It was all the graffiti was foreign and it was just horrific. And people where I'm from in Barry, they had no idea because, they know the guy from the corner shop and he's a nice guy. And they think, oh, that's multiculturalism, or they've got a black friend, But when you go to these areas and you see how bad it is, and that, the newspaper up there, it was at the time, it was called the South London Press. And while I was working in London, I was up there for a long time. Every time you pick up the paper, there was just attacks, stabbings, rapes, all sorts, right? And what's changed now? The only thing that's changed now is there's more of it. And, and no one ever asked the British people if they wanted this level of immigration. And this is why I say we were never asked. And every time this through my lifestyle, all through my life, every time there's been an election, the British people have demanded that immigration is reduced. And every time they've just been lied to, and every time they fall for it again. They just change the thing. They change the angle, but it's the same thing of saying, we're going to do this, we're going to stop this, we're going to do that, we're going to reduce this. And it never happens. They just make mugs out of people every single time. And they're still doing it now to this day. I've been around a long time and I've seen it happen so many times where people are reading a newspaper and work, oh, they're going to stop immigration, And it's like, are you that thick? Are you really that fucking stupid, It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I've always found it to be they could put a stop to it, or they could implement the solutions they said they were going to tomorrow if they wanted to. Everything has been a concerted effort, as you said. It's people's wishes haven't been lied to. I think you mentioned this, is people haven't been asked, and when they have been asked, the vast majority have said that they at least wanted it. For example, when the Conservatives got in 2010, they at least wanted it reduced back down to the levels of, I think it was the 70s or the 60s, back down to the tens of thousands. And then the next thing, you've got hundreds of thousands to million coming in every year. Up to, I think that was the peak of it, was about 1 million or so every year, even in counting the people that were leaving. And that's the complete opposite of what people voted for. And obviously that's why the Conservatives are such a bad name nowadays. I think the origins of the problems you can trace back a lot further than that. But it's exactly as you mentioned with the areas, which Tower Hamlets was when I was going to bring this up. I'm glad you brought it up because I don't know if you've seen recently. Have you seen that some of the representatives from Tower Hamlets are what is it? Campaigning to be part of the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party out in Bangladesh at the moment. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, no, I think it's some Tower Hamlets representatives are currently campaigning to be part of to represent the Bangladesh Nationalist Party out in Bangladesh. So when you say that these things, that immigration is at the heart of a lot of these things, and that's why an issue that I don't think a lot of people want to confront is that immigration, when we talk about all manner of other issues, NHS, social cohesion, whatever it is, cultural, usurpation, if you will, immigration is going to be at the heart of it. have we got any like specifics of the things which you saw as well? Like, were there any specific standout events when you started going up to London to work and all of these things? Were there like specific standout events that you noticed like firsthand?
Well, the thing is I saw a lot of crime while I was up there, and like I was working in Plasto at one stage, right? That's in East London, and I was I was decorating the house, and I was staying in the house while I was decorating it, and I had to go down to the town to get food every day from like Tesco and that. And I walked down the one night, and there's all these takeaways. And I went down to Tesco, went back, went down in the morning. There's all tape all round the Tesco, right? Like police tape. And on the floor, there's all circles drawn on the floor where they've drawn around, obviously, bullet casings, right? And the people are just walking past, going to work. They're not even looking. They're not even stopping to look, right? Now, if that happened in your town or my town, everyone would be standing there rubbernecking, saying, oh my God, what's happened? It's such a common thing that people don't even look. It's just every day there's murders, right? And it's nothing to them, And this is what it's like. And this is a long time ago, So it's a million times worse now.
And that's where it you hear it from people who live in these areas, British people that live in these areas, and a lot of the people then want to champion a lot of the left's initiatives like diversity, multiculturalism, all of these other things. You then look where they sort of live on the census data, and then you find out that they don't live in these areas. They don't live in they live in areas that are very predominantly ethnically homogenous, that there's very few in terms of ethnic minority, and that I think a lot of people's tunes would change. And that's why I'm very sympathetic that despite being, as you said, in an area where, at least according to the last census data, it is extremely ethnically homogenous, in terms of the native people that live here. But even now, people are saying, just when it comes up in conversation, even people who vehemently disagree with me on a lot of political issues are saying, like, I'm noticing more and more people I never noticed before. And that's why it's like, you see it in England, you see it in many of the big cities or whatever, and you see how much it's hit them and how much the culture and the people have been usurped and in many ways taken over. But then it's more of like a trickle down into communities like mine where it's a lot harder to notice. And that's where I think a lot of people, they just fall into these naturally sort of progressive, left-leaning, thought bubbles, so to speak. And the school system is very keen to provide them with that, train of thought. I don't know if you've seen where in schools in Wales nowadays and in schools in England, they like got some of their curriculum activities, which is like plot a course if you're coming from Syria all the way through Europe, try to avoid the border crossings, all of this stuff. It is really, really scary, the indoctrination that's been, drilled into them. And I think a lot of us are coming at it from the perspective, we see Tower Hamlets, we see London, we see Luton, we see all these other places. Like, can we not go down that road, please? I think that's where ultimately a lot of people's heads are at. How have you noticed things changing in Wales more specifically, though? So I see it in many ways sometimes a little bit harder to notice. We don't tend to have those key examples to point to a lot of the time.
Well, I worked for many years in Cardiff, right? And I was working on social housing in Cardiff, and I was doing Splot, Grangetown, Adamstown, and you see those areas changing. You drive through Grangetown when the schools are kicking out, right? 3-ish in the afternoon, and you could think that you were in India, right? Because there's thousands and thousands of school kids in uniforms, and none of them are white, a handful of them. It's literally, and like, it was like that. It's always been like that in Cardiff, but it's getting worse and worse now, In Cardiff, like, my missus went to Cardiff last week shopping, looking for something, and she said, I haven't been in Cardiff for a while, And she said, you want to see the state of Cardiff City Centre? She said, it's all foreigners, And she's not involved in any groups or anything. You know what I mean? She's not political, but she's just saying, "Oh my God, you want to see what Cardiff looks like?" And I said, "I haven't been there for ages. I can't stand Cardiff." You know, but like Cardiff is, that's where we're going, because when I drive around the valleys, you see more and more and more now Afghans and Africans, and the Africans. Loads of people message us, see, and tell us things. We've had people who work in the care industry. They are importing Nigerians like it's going out of fashion. They're ignoring British people who want jobs, and they are being paid to take Nigerians. And then when those Nigerians are coming here, they're allowed to bring their families as well. And it's like when you drive through some of the valleys, it stands out so much how many of them there are. And Bridgend is absolutely full of them. It's like if you drive around Bridgend town centre like on a Friday night, there's foreigners everywhere, you know. And the thing is, and I went for a meal in Swansea a while ago, and the Wetherspoons there is, I think it's called the Potter's Wheel, and it was full of like Eastern Europeans, and they were all outside sitting there drinking, and like I was just like gobsmacked of how many foreigners there were walking around the streets. And people have messaged me and say, I walked from Swansea train station down to the town and I hardly saw any Welsh people. And like people think I'm exaggerating. Go and have a look for yourself. Like, you know? It's like you can't go around filming these people because there's like families and it's not all men. It's just foreigners, you know? But like you can't go filming like what I said about Grangetown, you can't go filming school kids. You know what I mean? People need to go and have a look for themselves. But the thing is with these lefties, they all live in areas where there is no immigration. You know? And like I said, maybe they go down to the local corner shop and he's a lovely bloke and he gives them, a bit of discount and this and that. And that's their experience of multiculturalism. And they think because of that, whole cities and areas need to be swamped. And it's like nobody would have had a problem with immigration if it was small, but it's not.
If you enjoyed that clip, then make sure to go on over to the Voice of the Valleys X page at VOT_Valleys on X. We're also on Instagram at Voice of the Valleys. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon. Godspeed.